Yu-Gi-Oh! Is typically known for a combination of three things: impossible to follow combos, 20-year-old 4Kids memes, and bad formats. Ask any duelist who's touched cardboard in the past 15 years and you'll hear them run the gauntlet. Gumblar, Kashtira, hell, a lot of people have grown sour on Zoo in retrospect. Listening to people talk, it's easy to question why we ever loved this game in the first place. I'm a legacy player, coming back to the game after a long break, and it's fascinating to hear the way that competitive players describe the current metagame. Interactive, relatively inexpensive, fair, crazy. In today's video, I'd like to take a look at what makes a competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! Format bad. Please share and subscribe if you like this kind of content, and leave a comment describing what you personally think makes Yu-Gi-Oh! Less enjoyable. Your comments might be featured in a follow-up video. One of the more common complaints among players is the game's cost. Expensive formats are inaccessible to players who are unwilling or unable to shell out $700 for the best decks, or mandatory staples. Even the players who do drop the dough for the decks seem to have a bad taste in their mouths about it. Yu-Gi-Oh! Is a beloved game. For some, it's a source of their livelihood, and for many of us, it's our primary hobby. But that doesn't mean that spending $115 on a copy of Little Knight excites us. The verdict is in. Inaccessibility warps player perception of cards. When a card like Fuelos or the Fiendsmith engine is incredibly expensive, players want the cards banned or view their presence in the metagame as frustrating. Is it sour grapes? Maybe, but it's still a real complaint. Players have a push and pull relationship with card price. We want there to be some expensive cards so that we can get value off of our pack pulls or offload a deck that we don't want to play for a reasonable return, but we hate spending money on cards that are mandatory for play. While it's true that technically card price doesn't influence the quality of a format from a gameplay perspective, the more people that are gatekept from playing and enjoying the game, the worse a perception of the format they're going to have. People don't care if it's the flashiest, most glamorous carnival of a generation. If they can't get in, it's shit. It's bad enough when the cards cost too much. But what do you do when the expensive cards are the only ones worth playing? Very little in Yu-Gi-Oh! Is more polarizing than a one-deck format. Often referred to as Tier 0 formats, the exact definition of such has fluctuated over the years and between formats, but colloquially it's understood to mean a format where there's really only one viable competitive strategy. We get the worst of both worlds. Not only are the meta cards unbelievably expensive, as there's a fantastic amount of demand with a relatively static amount of supply, but you can't even run away to the old reliable off-meta strategy to cope. Yu-Gi-Oh! Has been through a number of Tier 0 formats in its history, and I don't need to relitigate them here. We've all seen the Duel Logs video. But one thing they share in common is that generally, they kinda suck. Kashtira's zone-locking bullshit, Spiral's ludicrous monster spam sandwich. Typically, a Tier 0 deck does something that breaks the game wide open and sets them apart from the rest of the cardboard of their day. A Tier 0 format need not necessarily be all bad, however. A format like Post-Magnificent Maven's Tier 0 was one of the most challenging, skill-intensive, and involved periods of Yu-Gi-Oh!'s history, and the Tier Mirror match is still worth revisiting and playing at the kitchen table, despite the booze and tomatoes from the masses. So, let's say that your format isn't particularly expensive, and there's a decent amount of deck variety. What else could possibly stand in the way of an enjoyable format? Blowout cards and game enders. Even in the greenest Yu-Gi-Oh! Pastures, and otherwise Elysian regionals can be ruined by the presence of a card or two. Edison format is plagued by royal oppression. Vanity's emptiness single-handedly makes Hat format unfun. In the modern day, cards like D-Shifter, Mystic Mine, and Nightmare Griffin invoked groans and table flipping at OTS stores across the globe before they were appropriately, finally handled. I understand the appeal of the Blowout card. It feels nice to hold that one piece of cardboard that steals the spark from your opponent's eyes and secures you the win, at the cost of everyone's long-term enjoyment of the game. But their impact on the health of the format is undeniable. There's an argument that Blowout cards are a response to an inherently unhealthy format, that the fact players are running cards like Droll indicates a deeper rot, but I'm not convinced. Duelists will, understandably, shark for every ounce of an advantage they can get, and Droll is just as likely to end the turn of a less than ideal yummy hand as it will some degenerate Exodia FDK bullshit. Konami is famously slow at hitting these obnoxious cards and fixing their damn game, but I think we have to give credit where credit is due. The recent hits to Paradise Smasher and Obedient Schooled are impressive indicators that Konami might know what's what, and the changing banlist philosophy might lead to less of this in the future. The last point I'd like to bring up in today's video is that of the dice roll format, the format where the player that wins the role, often choosing to go first, has basically won the match. This typically goes hand in hand with many of the blowout combo decks of Yu-Gi-Oh's history. The 10-minute wheel-spinning turns, the unbreakable boards. Literally nothing in Yu-Gi-Oh feels worse than watching your opponent play solitaire for 30 years, knowing that you've probably lost but can't really scoop because you might top deck your silver bullet, before passing turn and drawing the Nibiru that would have been helpful 2 episodes of SpongeBob ago. People just stop playing in these formats. There's other things to do, other hobbies to go enjoy, go spend your afternoon fishing or play Final Fantasy or do anything but watch the worst guy at your local's Dark World loop you. I am potentially signing myself up as a candidate for coldest Yu-Gi-Oh take of 2025, but I believe that these formats are basically over. I think that the design decisions made in Justice Hunters are going to set a precedent for the rest of the game's history, and I am confident that Konami is finally hitting a design stride post-anime with archetypes like Dragotail and K9. And the turn 0 plays with low ceilings and high recursion that allow both players to play the moment the game starts are the way of the future. Please call 911 as I am overdosing on hopium. I think that Yu-Gi-Oh has more good formats than bad ones. For every Gumbalar format, there are 2 Sword Soul branded or Sprite tier, and we are currently in the middle of an absolute revelation for the game. An interactive, diverse format that is relatively inexpensive to go and play, and features a number of diverse playstyles. It doesn't pigeonhole duelists into a single play or go home deck, and the back and forth in matches leads to interesting and fun game states that I hope more players sign up for and enjoy. What makes a Yu-Gi-Oh format bad for you? What was your least favorite format in Yu-Gi-Oh's history? If you think this video is a little negative, I'll have another video coming out taking a look at what makes a great Yu-Gi-Oh format. Thank you guys for tuning in, subscribe if you enjoyed, and remember to wash behind your ears.